Welcome home. This is the Irish Roots Cafe, where every day's a holiday and there's always room for one more. Come right this way. Have a seat with me today in the corner booth, celebrating our 79th week. Sweeney, clear the floor. Katie, bar the door. Molly, put on another pot of Irish coffee. It's time we get this show on the road. We've got another full house today, not a chair to spare. I'm Mike OLaughlin, your host. Reach me on my webpage at irishroots.com, where you can check out the written show notes on my blog. You can search most of our books with our new free search thing we have. You can go through all of our books and check out just what they're like. And we've also got the videos going up on there too, so we've got some little 2-minute videos that might be of interest. And yes, that's just another free service from the Irish Roots Cafe. And remember, you can phone me anytime at 816-256-3360 to leave your comments, your family search, your song, or your recitation on my recorder. Try it, you'll like it. Among today's topics: Irish maps, Australian newspapers, Griffiths survey online. Hernon is the name of the day. What about Griffiths Valuation online? Families of Donegal on the map of the Four Masters. The Aran Islands is the website of the week. Searching for Kelly and Clare. Searching for Kelly of Clare, Cahill, Power, Lindsay, and Gannon. And the last Irish night at Shea Stadium. And what about the Irish in the Olympics? Hey, this is just a reminder, you can get all three of my free broadcast series at irishroots.com, and they're also on iTunes if you use iTunes. But any way you can do it, you can come here 24 hours a day, or iTunes 24 hours a day, and hook right and listen to our shows. We've got 3 of them: the Irish in America, the Irish Families Worldwide, and the Irish Song and Recitation Festival. Well, now it's time to move on to notes and letters for the week. Well, the first letter I'm going to read here we got a couple of days ago, and Malachi McVeigh writes in and said, "Many thanks for the Fall of Irish Chiefs and Clans and Names in the Land Grants, 2 books that I received today." And he said he's just retired after 40 years of service with the Ordnance Survey of Ireland and the National Map, which is the National Mapping Agency. And he said he was responsible for the research development of the website irishhistoricmaps.ie, and that site contained all the pre- and post-famine mapping for Ireland. I'll have a link for that in my blog. That sounds real interesting. And he said that his reason for contacting me was that he's looking for a connection, and he wanted to know if I had any books on John O'Donovan, who was the place names officer in the Ordnance Survey way back when. And I told him that I had 2 books that were written by O'Donovan that had some interesting notes by him, and that was Tribes and Customs of High Fiacra and Tribes and Customs of the High Mini, 2 books by John O'Donovan. And of course, O'Donovan also did a translation of the Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters, so there's no lack of information on him, I think. Well, thank for that letter. Number 2, I see somebody sent a note here and said Australia is starting to go online with their newspapers. They sure don't have them all online, but there sure is a bunch, and a bunch coming up. And of course, the Irish are big in Australia. We know that by all the listeners we got to the show here in Australia. And that'd be a good place to go and check out if you're interested. So I'll have a link for that page on the on my webpage on the blog. So just go to my webpage and you go over to the left-hand column and it'll say blog, and you click on blog and it takes you there. And I have some extra notes on most of our podcasts right there. And talking about Australia, I had lunch Friday with a visitor in from Australia, and he has a sheep ranch out there. He mentioned that there still are specific areas identified as Irish, and I think he mentioned that when the bishop visited, there was always a first stop right there in that Irish area. He also told me it took about 4 acres of land per sheep. You learn something new every day. Hey, number 3. I got a note from James Malley searching for Verily, Varelly, and he mentioned he'd been searching for a while. We had talked in the past, and he wanted to know if it could come from the name D Verily, a DE prefix in front of the name. And of course, I said yes, that's reasonable, and I have the name or a similar name twice in our files. If you go search the free surname index, and that's spelled with an E on the end instead of a Y, and one of them has an ES. So, and they're both Huguenot names, so that's the same track he was on, and it's real easy to substitute a Y for an E in these names, especially in centuries past. So that's a good little research tip. And number 4, I got a note saying that there's going to be a Donegal family reunion on July 2 to 5 in 2009 in South Salem, Illinois. Keep an ear out for that. We'll probably make some more announcements as the time gets closer. And also got a note saying that Ancestry.co.uk users, they've got about 1 million names from Griffiths Valuation online. That's a major resource for the 1800s in Irish genealogy, and that includes the famine era of 1845 to 1852. So there's a good note, ancestry.co.uk. Number 6, you know, the 14 short videos we just released are doing well. It was an experience learning how to put them all together, and I'd like to do more along that line. Maybe even a music video based on the Irish family story we all have in common. Now, all I need is a backer. If only I lived in Hollywood, which, by the way, my young nephew does live in Hollywood, and he's just written Boogeyman 2 and Boogeyman 3. All that's way out of my league now, all that horror stuff. But it's interesting to see how a career might blossom out there. And, of course, his name's Brian Seavey, and he wrote those. And his younger brother, still in high school, shot and edited the series of Irish videos we just released. Something must be in the DNA there. Well, now it's time for the Books of the Month. Well, we've got The Aran Islands by J.M. Synge, and that'll be an interesting one. You know that in 1907, Synge got quite a bit of publicity for the Playboy of the Western World, and The Aran Islands was published in the same year, and it records his visit to the islands around 1898 to 1901. The second book of the month will be Families of County Donegal, Ireland, and we'll have an extract from that on the blog. And it just a little bit from the introduction talks about the O'Donnells being of the same descent as other families like the O'Muldories, and O'Gormley, sometimes spelled as Grimley or Grimley, and when the modern county of Donegal was formed, I think that was 1585 under the British regime, and the county took its name from the town of Donegal, which was the only refuge for Her Majesty's settlers at one point. Now, if we go on down to County Donegal, I'll include on the blog the families listed in County Donegal on the map of the Four Masters. That's the Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters, that gigantic folding map in the Cahill translation. And it tells you what families were there in earlier days. I try to pick one each week or so. And what names were there were names like McBride and McLean and McCluskey and McGowan and McHugh, McSweeney, O'Donnelly, O'Donlevy, O'Morrison, O'Muldory, O'Murray, O'Neill, O'Quinn, O'Rafferty, O'Sheeran, and O'Tarshert. I don't know about that one. That sounds a little strange. I must have that spelling wrong. And also O'Rafferty. But there's another 20 or 30 more good ones there. I'll leave that on the blog if you're interested, and we'll have to see what's what. Hey, coming up later, we're going to talk about Irish Night at Shea Stadium and why this one coming up is real important and who's singing at it. But now it's time to raise our eyes skyward and give thanks and ask for help. Here are today's magnificent 7 Irish family researchers. Number 1, new member Ann Fink Nelson of Anchorage, Alaska, looking for Daniel and Sarah Kelly from O'Callahan Mills, County Clare. And she notes Thomas Scanlon from Tenerani, County Kilkenny, and Thomas Halligan from Glenmore around Waterford Road. And says they have some info, always looking for more, especially on females. Number 2, new member Kim Zorno of Galloway, Ohio, searching for Hernon, Tennant, and Elliott. Number 3, new member Anne McDonald of Victoria, Australia, looking for the Cahill family of Erie Court, Galway, Ireland. And Bridget Cahill married, Bridget Cahill, that was her married name. She was born in Galway in 1810, married to an unknown Cahill male. There's a lot of those unknown males out there. And let me see, they had 3 children, Margaret, Patrick, and John. Bridget was transported to Tasmania in 1849. And she says she'd like to find out more information about her husband and her maiden name. Maybe even a gravestone. So if you've got some information, let me know. I'll put Ann in touch with you. And that goes for anything you hear here, folks. If you hear anybody's got something you're interested in, I'll let them know that you're out there and they can contact you. Number 4, new member Jody Dinnell of Chester, Pennsylvania, searching for the Power family of Clonmoult in County Cork. Number 5, new member James Welsh of Springdale, Pennsylvania, searching for, let me see, it wasn't on the application, but we assume he's looking for the Welsh family. James, send me in your search there, and we'll make sure we match it up. Number 6 of the Magnificent 7, G. Allen Lindsay of Seal Beach, California. I'm doing research on a Lindsay family who lived in County Kerry, he says, and it's between 1795 and 1820, and he said they might have lived in Tarbert. And I think isn't there a little ferry there that stops at Tarbert? I remember seeing that sign when I was in Ireland, Tarbert to Killimer, something like that. Number 7, Donald Marcy of Long Beach, California, looking for information on Gannons and Marcys and etc. He's the latest member. I'll save the rest for later. That's about the end of this. I can't do any more. We're going to be cut way short for time. That reminds me, thank you to each and every one of you members, because without you, these podcasts would not be possible. And like it is with anything else, there's only 1 out of 1,000 that pays the bills, and you're doing it. So we sure do appreciate you out there and keeping all that we're doing going strong. I think it's time to move on to the Irish family name of the day, which is going to be Hernon. Today's family history is in honor of full member Kim Zorno, searching for info on Hernon, Tennant, and Elliott. Now, we take a look at this name, and we take a look in the Master Book of Variant Spellings for the Irish names, and it comes up with 2 different spelling groups, number 864 and number 876. And gosh, you're going to look at it and say, well, how in the world does Hernon come from that? Now, you can understand like Hernon, Hertnon, that's another way they might spell it, or Hertnan. Then they say it might come from longer names like Hartnane, or Heffernan, or Havern, and somehow it got shortened. I'm not sure how all these names got shortened, but all it takes is one wild card in the family, and they can just decide to shorten their name to something they like better. So that's where some of those names come from. I got a fuller list right on the blog if you're interested in the details. And we don't have a whole lot of history on the name. We do have some sources. We do know that the Hernon family name is found traditionally in County Galway and on the Aran Islands, most often in the records. And we took a look in our Irish Book of Arms, and we couldn't find any documented source for the Hernon name with coats of arms, but that's okay, because a lot of families had no arms, at least no official arms. And if we take a look at the Free Master Index search on our webpage at irishroots.com, we find the family about 76 times. What'd we find? The birth index of Ireland held the name. The families of County Clare, which is not that far from Galway and the Aran Islands. The book Irish Families has a note that we just gave you on them. And Irish Names and Surnames by the Reverend Patrick Wolfe has an entry. Tribes, Customs, and Genealogies of the High Fiachra by none other than O'Donovan has a reference to the name, at least in the index. And Families of County Galway, as you might expect, we've got the name in there. And last but not least, County Mayo Genealogy and Family History Notes. Boy, all our sources just say that name's on the west coast of Ireland, don't they? That's a pretty good historical backup for what the traditional location is. Well, that'll do it for today on Hernon. Now we're going to move on to the websites of the week. Now, we're going to pick, since we just talked about the Hernons and the Aran Islands possibly, we'll pick the Aran Islands as a website, and we'll have the link for that website on the blog. That's on a page called allaboutirish.com, and it spreads on out to the Aran Islands somehow. So if you know how to operate the web, you can get there, or you can just go to the blog and click on that link. That's for a quick overview of the Aran Islands, and it notes the history of the area with just a few illustrations. It talks a little bit about mass immigration in the 20th century. Everybody left, and that the islands are about 11 miles off the coast of Galway, and they're part of the Gaeltacht, and that's the Irish-speaking area of Ireland. My first trip to the Aran Isles was right along... I remember that. It was in a small boat, and I got in this little boat, and then all of a sudden a farmer come along, or a sheep herder, and they packed about 20 little sheep in there, and I was tripping all over them. I was wondering, what in the world's going on here? It was a real small boat, and it was a really fun experience. I've never had one like it since. Number 2, we'll have another website for the week, and that's Irish Maps Galore. That's what we mentioned up there way back at the beginning of the podcast, that irishhistoricmaps.ie. We'll put a link on the blog for that. Remember, it contains all pre- and post-famine mapping for Ireland. Very interesting statement. You have to check that out. Boy, we're coming up here towards the end. What have we got here? Curious news and notes. We'll end it up with the fun stuff. Let me see. It said they've got the last ever Irish night at Shea Stadium, and that's, of course, the home to the New York Mets that's being discontinued. And Galway law student David O'Leary is given the honors of singing the Star Spangled Banner that night. So, heck, we've got an Irish native singing for the last night there, and boy, that'd be a good night to be there, I'll bet. Number 2, I read in a blog about the connection of Irish prisoners who settled in the Caribbean, and noted some place names like Kinsale and St. Patrick's and Cork Hill. And I'll put that address on my blog. Number 3, they've been working feverishly on Barack Obama's family tree, as reported earlier, especially now that he's been nominated officially. But now they're even coming up with even more information, and they're saying things like, the family is likely connected to Cahill, historic land in Ireland. Of course, when you say likely connected, what does that mean? Well, us genealogical researchers know just what that means. That means we're not sure. There's a lot of folks around there with the name, and maybe the family was close to some of them, so it's interesting how this sort of thing works around political campaigns. Now, number 4, Irish boxer Kenny Egan has prevailed in the Olympics. He brought home a medal, and his mother, Mara Egan, looked on from home in Clondalkin, Dublin. You can see the irishtimes.com for more on that story and a couple others. Dublin boxer Darren Sutherland settled for a bronze medal, it says, in this year's Olympics. And Belfast boxer Paddy Barnes also claimed the first medal for the Irish team. Well, boy, we got some medals in there. I always knew those Irish were tough, huh? Number 5, this month has been the wettest August in Ireland in at least 22 years, and it's not over yet. It said they had already had double the average amount of rain for a August. So boy, I didn't get caught in that this year. I guess I was sort of lucky. Of course, I'm not sure how'd you tell what was the wettest. Sometimes it seems like it's raining all the time. And other times you go over there in the rainy season and it's dry for a week, so there's no telling. Number 6, let's finish it up. Greg Smith of Ireland won the €9 million lottery about 2 weeks ago, so he's a millionaire several times over. So now I'd like to advise all you Smith genealogy researchers to feverishly connect your family tree to the Smith family in Ireland. That way you can go and pay a visit to your cousin Greg Smith, who has just become a multi-millionaire. Well, remember to send your comments by clicking the contact link on our webpage at www.irishroots.com or send by mail to our American address, the Irish Roots Cafe, Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri 64116. Leave your message or report on things in your part of the world when you call my phone recorder at 816-256-3360 or Skype me at Irish Roots Cafe. Members foot the bill so they get first priority, but we're open to all. And by the way, a big thank you to all of our members and away.